today I'm going to introduce you again to the concept of how frequently Scotland's leaders sells its country. It's an obligation for them to do that. They will not take us to freedom, and the police force is led by one Stephen House, and luckily he's been forced by people like me into resignation. This video also features Matheson, the Justice Secretary, and Kenny McCaskill, and all of the people who are union leaders for the police force that take the bun to shut the fuck up and let them get away with grand larceny against the Scottish people. It's the world's people now. Every one of the political classes are stealing from their nations, and the report in Scotland is particularly sick. I've got a series of tabs on OneNote that I'm going to take you through really quickly, and it shows you how the Murdoch family interlock with the religious fraud way back in the 12th century. Yeah, that's the Murdoch family that run the Leveson inquiry, and the Levesons are the first Dukes of Sutherland. Yeah, they are trading under that name of Leveson Gower, and they're buried in the cemetery where Madonna was married, for a massive diversion from the truth about the ownership of the world. Yeah, and all of it takes you into David Murray's golf course in the Scottish borders, right next to the Borders Council, where they have donkeys in a field, which is the Jesus joke, and each donkey costs £600 per year to maintain in the field by all of the jokers who have stolen the world. That's the Murrays, the Murdochs, and the link to Rupert Murdoch may not yet be obvious, but it will be in 10 minutes time. And this sad bastard, that I struggled to explain the word to load your feties. Yeah, this one has asset stripped the whole of Scottish policing. Yeah, since 2010 when Salmon took over, and since around the middle of 2011 when they launched the Moira Anderson murder again, to cover the Arnold Manderson, and all of the Justice Secretary's denial comes out in this video. I have not got time to show you the whole thing. Matheson is the MP for Falkirk, and we have to pull Falkirk into the story because Falkirk is the epicentre for the Christianity fraud, and all the European and French elites who come across here to run the show under the names Duff, Kerr, Murdoch, yeah, and Murray. Yeah, Freemasons globally now own the whole world, and the whole world is totally lawless as a consequence. Yeah, he is a Metropolitan Police officer. They are just a suppress the people and kill them quick project. That's why he's had to openly declare that he's been displaced because of his desire to have armed police on every street corner in Great Britain. Right then. And Report in Scotland are totally pathetic, and their leadership team take you onto the moon scams and the speeches that are made there by Armstrong's legendary revolutionaries, but all of them are at the trough.
And in September, 10 months earlier than planned, dogged by a series of incidents which had him placed under increasing pressure, he said today that the time was right for him to try and take up new challenges. Here's STV's chief reporter, David Cowan.
A summer of discontent over the policing of Scotland has forced its top officer to step down. In April, Sir Stephen House insisted he'd see the job through to the end of his contract in autumn next year. This morning he announced he'll be gone by December.
I'm immensely proud to be the first Chief Constable of Police Scotland and to lead the men and women in it. But for me the time has come to move on, to take up new opportunities.
In recent months the pressure on the force and its Chief Constable has reached new levels. In May, Sheku Bayu died as he was being arrested in Kirkcaldy. Then in July, police took 3 days to respond to a crash on the M9, which left John Yule dead and his partner Lamara Bell trapped, fatally injured in the wreckage. Labour called for Sir Stephen to consider his position, but he stayed on until today. So Stephen, are you resigning over what's happened in the M9 and in Kilkenny?
Not at the moment, but I will be later. Thanks very much.
He and law enforcement in Scotland sold Scotland in the referendum. The whole thing is a fudge. The people that run the councils, the local councils, get huge pay hikes. All of their employees have a pay freeze for 7 years back to back until yours truly comes along. Yeah, that in the Borders region is a woman, head of HR, yeah, anonymous, deputy head of the Borders Council, and when the other boss is forced into retirement because he's unfit for work, and I believe he may be physically blind, yeah, she then doubles her salary and they screw off to a thing called COSLA in Aberdeen, which is the Steal from the People of the Country project, and all of them pretend that they do not understand where the money has gone. Alistair Hutton, the former head of the Scottish Borders Council, who probably installed the donkey field in league with David Murray with his golf course right next door to the Abbotsford Trust, right next door to the Scottish Borders Council building, and all of their treason is coming out onto the pavements. We do not need bloodletting this time. It's only reputational exposure that makes them go. He is not actually going until Christmas, the other legend in these massive interlocking frauds. Right then, let me see if we can find Matheson. There's a little sad bastard, yet Scottish Justice Secretary, because he's got the same middle initials as Kenny Matheson Dalglish. Yeah, he's the MP for Falkirk. The other MP for Falkirk is the cover for the last politician in Britain to be executed for treason. Actually a false newsman. That is the links to Eric Joyce in the Commons bar and the brawls, and everything is false fucking news. Yeah, and how they live with themselves, I have no idea. He does not look too healthy. Yeah, there's the Saltire flag, which is the joke about the Cross Keys and the Cluny Abbey and the launch of the Paisley Cathedral. Yeah, the Piso jokes are everywhere, and the Episcopalian Church is particularly savage in that sector. They openly have in their cedar wood tiles in the church roof the initials of the fraudulent Bible author KP. That's the KP nuts you used to eat at the cinema in the epicentre for financial fraud in Lothian Road, when Scotland had spirited people that were prepared to tell the truth. And we only had one tier of government in our local councils, and we had loads and loads of publicly owned care homes, publicly owned disabled homes, publicly owned housing schemes, all of them available to the punters, none of them available to me under formal freedom of information requests as to who are the social landlords and why is this man from Arnott Manderson, the company that cost Scotland its freedom, able to work as a defence lawyer, as a prosecution lawyer, or as a sheriff in the same per profit company that is registered in Parliament Square in Edinburgh 1 year before they fudged the referendum. And the killing of Moira Anderson is the cover for the creation of that company called Arnott Manderson. And he received my letters on the Trident scandal out of London that could have made Scotland free. Totally ignored it, did nothing about it, covered it up relentlessly like all of them did. The other one, the former Justice Secretary, is in the video too. There's House, there he is, McCaskill, speaking outside the Parliament building. He was forced into resignation because he's privy to all of the secrets, and as the head of the Policing Scotland, he's the equivalent of the English Police Commissioner for every county, but in Scotland we're asset stripping everything that we used to have in our regional forces, and their buildings are asset stripped by the RBS and Lloyd's Banking Group, toxic debt pools, They take over the building, which is solvent. It's the only asset that the police have. Yeah, and they then register them as part of the G4S real estate empire, and they have a massive toxic debt pool, and that's why all of them bitch about not being able to fund anything in the public sector now. Okay? Yeah, he was the recipient of all of my emails on the Trident. That makes him complicit, and he had to go. He's back bitching about how everybody else is condemning Scotland and its citizens to a life in poverty. They are sad, treasonous bastards.
And his family.
There was praise for his record on tackling crime.
There's some things overlooked, but Sir Stephen has a lot of successes. For example, domestic violence.
The war crimes are particularly severe on their transcript. They have confirmed receipt in writing to me, and that is now published in dozens and dozens of events across the country. Yeah, yet the law enforcement still allows them to play the chess game. Yeah, it is a massive scandal. Right, I'm going to take you now into the history of all of the treason. Let me see who else is featured. Yeah, and you should see what the BBC come over with. This is a new man, and he's been put in because my new MP is Callum. Yeah, and my former MP is David Steele. Both of them are now negligent of their duties in protecting our democracy from these fraudsters, and all of these people are former footballers or public figures who have joined the union movement, like David Prentice, who has frozen everybody's pay for 7 years back to back as the boss of at Unison and a man on the court of the Bank of England. It's almost as if she might have shame. You can see that she's got her eyes open widely, as if the news she is releasing about these traitors, yeah, is sensational. It is sensational. They are traitors. Yeah, they are now war criminals and complicit in everything that I have told you about the Trident scandals and all of the crimes of Rifkind and John Anthony Chilcot. Yeah, the inquest chair. The inquest never gets published. Same with Mark Thatcher's inquest. These are the treasonous bastards behind Alistair Moffat's extreme right-wing policies. He comes into the story later on as the rector at St Andrews and the successor to Butcher Haig.
Sir Willie Rennie. Callum Steele, did Sir Stephen House...
Do you get it? Callum Steele. Yeah, and all of them bitch about somebody else being responsible for the loss of our funding. And all of the SNP politicians were privy to my information in the lead up, which is why Salmond has buggered off. Yeah, he's the leader. He presumably gets a bigger bung than all of the rest of them, and the whole lot of them now are in denial. It's the only time I've seen Matheson speaking, and he just meanders around. There are no policies. Yeah, all of what Stephen House has done is to dismember policing in Scotland, and local policing in particular. All the local jobs go, and the people who cannot speak English properly are employed by G4S. And that gets the citizens all riled up, and all of them are total traitors to their countries. So let's see whether or not we've got other pictures of other figureheads. Yeah, so that's Willie Rennie, head of the Lib Dems. He's also on my email list for all of the previous regime. And the Lib Dems are the people that harbour David Steele and all of the people that let our country down. Michael Moore, yeah, the traitor in the Scottish office, Secretary of State for Scotland, now nothing on Hansard. That is a huge crime for the Secretary of State for Scotland, who's privy to the Dunblane inquests, the Lockerbie inquests, and all of the fatal accidents that Peter Watson and Sheriff Peter Patterson with 1T and the man from Arnott Manderson are now privy to, which is why I get the gagging order and these people divert you with things about car accidents and cars that go missing in the woods. Yeah, all of the news is launched by them as false news for their geopolitical and financial frauds and crimes against the world's people. Yet they are traitors to Scotland, but they are traitors to the global democracy concept, and they are the fourth or fifth tier of democracy in Britain. Right then, let's get on with the more serious historical exposures. How the Murdochs come into the Scottish crime scene. Okay, let's go through the tabs quickly and remind you of what I've already released to the world. There is the Clan Murray icon, yeah, with the fleur-de-lis and the French connection openly declared. Remember that we talked about all of the Bertie jokes and the Bertillon jokes and the Bertie jokes that are in the Windsor King's speech joke about World War II, yeah, and Bertie and the word William the Conqueror is the key word, because all of the ownership of what we now have in Great Britain came from the French invasion in 1066, and as they transitioned into the owners, they first launched the bishopric and the religious title to keep the citizens in fear and to keep their souls right under the fascist heel. Okay? So we've done that already, and we've shown you how it links to the Kerrs and the Sutherlands. The Sutherland story is a scandal, yeah, because they then do the same thing that you've just seen in the Scottish side of the bloody border in the Leveson inquiry, and the Levesons are the first Dukes of the Merks. Sorry, the Sutherlands up north. That's Leveson Gower, Dukes number 1 and 2, and the inquest chair that gets every one of the villains in the fraud that is the democracy that we now have, or pretend to have, which is just a mafia led by Murdoch. And it's very interesting to see how the Murdoch name comes in. Right then, so that's Eels the Threat, and I think there might be some pictures of some damage done by the Eels and the damage done by the Murrays and the links to the Bruces and the links to the Duffs, and all of it now makes sense to me. There's the Freskin Erskine jokes, there's the William joke, and there is the Hugh Shug of Moravia joke. The Moravingians out of France, out of the lowlands in Holland and Belgium, and right into the monarchy in Scotland. And the Picts are goners, and the Gaels are also goners. And all of that is a huge joke for the current bastards that run it. I thought we had a picture of the eel damage, but that must be on the other ones. Oh yeah, there we are. That's what a Moray eel can do, presumably by preference to the left arm of its nation. Yeah, you can see the raw nerves, you can see the damage that the Moray eel can do, and you've got an Electrophorus species that can give you dramatic heart attacks, and I totally understand how both of those mechanisms work, the physical damage and the pathologies involving your nervous system and your cardiovascular lifeline. Yeah, I totally understand how all of that works. Yeah, and I'm quite interested in the links to the coronary events that people like Salmon's friends have, yeah, and the amputations that the Murrays have and the Buccleuchs have. I found some terribly loyal people to the Buccleuchs at the celebration of the killing of all of Scotland's pipers You understand the Piper joke now. It's the Piso joke with the word pie and Harold Wilson's pipe. Yeah, Harold Wilson's pipe that was used to make it look like a very mature decision that we carpet bombed the Garden of Eden in 1960. Head of the Bilderberg movement, right next door to the Douglas Humes of Hume Bridge fame in Sarajevo, and legendary philosophers in the pacifist sector. Right then, let's keep profiling the mafia. There is the same image, and there is the only image I can find in European pageantry and history that is the Moravian in European history. Yeah, that's in a town in Germany, and I forget what the name of it is. It's relatively unimportant. It's the Murrays of Scotland what do the damage. Yeah, and they put the fucking donkeys in the field because that's the joke about Jesus. 600, that's £600 a year to keep each one, is the code name for Jesus in the Piso code. And David Murray and all of the Abbotsford Trust, that is Alistair Hutton, who used to have the council, yeah, asset stripped everything in it. His wife Deirdre fucked off to the south, and now she's been completely disappeared as former head of the health board from even being responsible for being the politically correct Queen of the Quangos in the south. And all of them are listed on the Abbotsford Trust, the Walter Scott Club in Edinburgh, and that is the ones that celebrate the killing of all of the British troops in every great conflict, and all of them are crinkly elderly people. And Alistair Hutton was the commentator at the Duke of Roxburgh's celebration of the killing of the Pipers, the honest men from all over Scotland that are led to their deaths by the fascists from all over the world, who started off in Italy and Naples, and suddenly they appear in Constantinople and in the Paisley Abbey, and then suddenly we have sectarian violence in Ireland, and all of it is explained in the 2 to 3 videos that I've made in recent weeks. Days rather. Yeah, Duke of Roxburgh is a relatively innocent man. He does not flout it like the Murrays with the donkeys, but that's the same role that Ali G plays in the team for the Judaism frauds. Right then, so it's the Lip River Valley that has the German eel shield. Yeah, and that's the Lipizzaner joke, where we've shown you the horses leaping up and coming down heavily on the foot soldiers on the opposition side. That's the common ordinary people that are conscripted into the war, as totally explained in the Braveheart movie, which comes in further down. Right then, so this is the Freskin name that allowed us to detect that the Murrays are involved in the first place, and King David I is the warlord from England who arranges the whole of the Scottish treason and the whole of the religious strife from a safe range. Okay, and there's the Strathbock linkage, and the William of Lion is likely to be the door knocker joke that I will tell you about later on. Yeah, there it is, the door knocker joke. In the place where Madonna, the Mother of God, was wedded when her son was baptized the day before at 1 year old, and our other son is on another continent that day, and the whole of Scottish reporting have a bean feast because they pretend that the journalists are the villains and they need to be locked out of the premises. Same as the Leveson inquiry. Every one of those things is trivia, and they get remunerated for it, for deceiving the people and using the trivia to take their minds off the financial crimes and frauds that means that everybody has to live in poverty and rental homes, and when they get elderly they are victims of the NHS frauds and they cannot stand up off their couch, like my Auntie Ina in Falkirk, where that bastard Matheson is the Justice Minister in inverted commas. And Paul Wheelhouse does not deserve any respect at all, because he's just a supportive mechanism for him. He was not even elected into office. He's a list member. The whole thing is a fucking abomination. Right then, but you know this bit already. Let's just flash down in case some of those ducal names. So the Flemings are in it, the de Moravia people are in it, and that's the of Murray linkage. The Atholls are in it, the Sutherlands are in it, and the Black Douglases are in it. The Jehovah's would not let me sit next to the Douglas princesses yesterday. I had to sit in the rear of the room in a little box like the commentary rooms in Murrayfield. You might have heard of Murrayfield in the connection of the defrauding of your country's assets. Right then. There's the Douglas connection. The Douglas women have lovely black hair, like the innocents in the Braveheart film. I was not allowed to speak to them yesterday. Yeah, and the Belgian worshippers could not go to worship yesterday because they were in a commercial deal with the pipe bands. That's the pie bands that take all of the Scottish people to their death in the great European conflicts in the Tyrol. And Alistair Hatton is ever so proud of his record in that sector, and yesterday he had the medals on and the microphone in his hand. Yeah, the who are all those bricks for Kevin joke? Brickius de Douglas, William Lord of Douglas, and they become the Bishop of Murray, where Madonna gets wedded. And Madonna is already, her hymen is well split. Take my word for it. But she's Kabbalah. So that may not be a crime in the Christian sect. Okay? The Bishop of Murray, so there's the Cerdale joke that brings the Dukes of Roxburgh and the Marquis of Lothian into the sad tales. Okay, let's keep going. You know all of that now. And there's the air bases, and everywhere where they rule the roost, they are surrounded by NATO's armies for their own safety, and none of the NATO's armies people get pay rises or decent pensions. Yeah, they're all scammed out of their pensions by what occurred in China just a few days ago. I no longer have a lifeline. I don't give a fuck. If I have to be martyred for this case, I will be martyred for it. The news is coming out. Yeah, and Jedburgh Sheriff Court is particularly deeply embroiled in this, and all of the local officials know now that they have nowhere to go. House has had to resign because my pressure on him and all of the exposures on his profiteering and asset stripping exercises over the course of the last 2 years have brought him down. There is no way that you can cover up crimes of that magnitude. Michael Matheson, Justice Secretary. Right then. So, Dornoch, very, very interesting place. Madonna was married by a vicar called Brown. You now understand that the brownie is the goblin on the church roof, and that is the fucking puka jokes about world wars and the great genocides. Yeah, really, really funny to laugh at that in your country's everyday news items. Yeah, religion is a fraud, so the vicar is called Brown, and she's the fallen angel from the church roof. That is the big ears is the goblin from the church roof, and it's the same joke that was shared by Beaverbrook in the series of comedies that were published about Big Ears and the little elfin character, or the dwarf, that was Big Ears and lovely little coloured cars for the under fives. Oh goodness me, what was the name of the main character? May come to me later on. Okay, so the cathedral at Dornoch is next door and is now actually, the building that she was married in is now actually the Carnegie Foundation elite mansion, and it's a golf club conflicts purchased from their cousins in the Christian clergy when the going was good. Yeah, and a lot of the strife in religion is about ownership of the land or ownership of the buildings, and that is where Sir Walter Scott comes in, because he's the fucking curator for the Borders abbeys that were set up by King David, and he asset strips them several times, and all of the treasures end up in his privately owned museum. And then when the Borders Council come along again and they get even more supportive of those fascist leaders, they rebuild the home for them, they put them back in the ancient elite home, and the new museum is built like the headquarters of the Scottish Government to stand up to the winds of change for only 20 or 30 years. And it's a public contract, and the whole thing is a scandal. Adam of Melrose Freemasons was dug up and reburied here in Dornoch like Robert the Bruce was in Melrose out of Jerusalem. That's Robert the Bruce, the traitor in the Scottish freedom concept, who fought for Longshanks, and everybody thinks that's really funny. And his dad gets leprosy, and the whole of the citizens base, when they're being particularly evil like that, if they're supportive of them, gets leprosy or the plague. And all of it God is watching down on, and they do not see the danger of taking on the greater beings. The Episcopalian training hub is in the Almond Valley. Yeah, that's the Episcopalian church with the initials KP on their cedar wood roof right next door to IHS, which is the Insus Jesus joke, and that is the Guy Innes Kerr joke, and it is the joke about the protesters at Grangemouth who've also had their pay frozen for as long as people can remember, even although they're doctoral graduates or postgraduates in chemistry, and they work for the BP subsidiaries that still belong to the Queen. That's the 700 subsidiaries that we profiled way back in the early 1990s. Yeah, and that is the Lonro Lonmin Empire, owned still by Prince Charles and the man that runs the Girls' School in St Paul's in London. And the Episcopalian Church is just the Anglican Church. It's the Better Off Together movement, and their churches are lovely. And I've been referred to an innocent man who wants to talk to me, and like the Dickensian character, his name is Mr. Dick. And I feel a little bit sorry for him already, because I'm cleverer than them, and they will soon find that out. And Mr. Dick is a representative for both the cross-border Kelso and Otterburn hunting communities. Yeah, that's the bloody border, and all the sick jokes. The whole of their meetings are a cover for everything that I'm declaring, and every news item that I let out. The whole of the Jehovah's base compromise themselves and try and cover it up. We had a massive following on the weekend because I've had a very productive week, which is why they would not let me sit next door to the princesses in the Douglas family. That's the black Douglases with the bad reputation, because they used deceit and pretended they were sheep's. They were wolves in sheep's clothing when they took over Roxburgh Castle, that used to be the capital city, but we had to raze it to the ground because it was too expensive to keep rebuilding it when the English kept taking it over. NB, the Leveson Gowers number 1 and 2 are buried beside Adam of Melrose in the Dornoch Cathedral Cemetery. That's the chairs of the Leveson inquiry and the people, the Sutherlands, who sent the colonists to the colonies. And Gilbert de Moravio is also buried in the Dornoch Cathedral. Can you begin to see now the might of the cause that is false religion as it sweeps out of France, yeah, owns the whole world, yeah, and all of that from 1066 on leads to the ownership of Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales. And the people at the church are really articulate, and I will continue to talk to them, and I would not want to embarrass them. You can see that they can see now my power and the power of imposing a conscience on them. And there was a man at the church yesterday, and you know, on the list of people from Alexander the Great, there's someone the fat, and the man who was the fat man in the front pew yesterday is clearly in incredible pain. They had to bring the communion to him, and I will look into the man who's the fat on the listings yeah, for the Piso family right up to the Windsor family, because it looks as if the fat lineage may well be still in the Borders region, like the Vesties with their links to the Sutherlands, and the Dornoch is nowhere near the north coast of Scotland. And presumably some of that is the fear of the spirited Vikings, who were pagans a lot longer than most of the European nations. Do you get it now? Right then. So that's the links between fascist Melrose, which is right next door to David Murray's golf course, yeah, and the black and yellow colours that are all over the transcript, and there's the links to Halkirk in the diocese of Dornoch, and that's the door knocker, which is the lion with the ring through its mouth. That's the Lion of Judah joke. The door knocker. Right then. And these, you can see how brief they are. So there's the statement. Adam of Melrose's body was moved here from the church of Skinnet in 1239. St Gilbert of Dornoch, he comes in later on. He's really, really interesting. He takes us into the Murdochs. Founder of Dornoch Cathedral, and George Leveson Gower, 1st Duke of Sutherland, and Elizabeth Leveson Gower, Duchess of Sutherland, are also skeletons in the same closet. Right then, here's the Adam of Melrose, and I think I've done enough on that already. Did we do the St Andrews? Oh no, we've missed whole chunks. Scottish clans. How did that happen? The Standing Council of Scottish Chiefs. Okay, this is all the big names. Yeah, all the big names that I reeled off the other night. Yeah, with the Bruces and all the treasonous people. Yeah, these are the ones that opted out. They must have particularly severe guilt burdens. That's the Duke of Fife, Chief of Carnegie. Yeah, that's the golf course and the massive hotel where Madonna was diverting the people from the crimes of the politicians globally. Yeah, George W. Bush's regime, the man's deemed to be a buffoon, is much cleverer than everybody that goes to Murrayfield and Hampden, because they're being robbed blind but they don't know it. Earl of Hague, yeah, he definitely has a conscience. That's the butchers in wartime. Earl of Crawford and Balcarres, the Lindsays, the Minguses, the Murrays, and the Dukes of Athol, and the Dukes of Blair Gowrie, right next door to Blair Athol. Yeah? And the Blair people are right in the epicentre of Stephen House's training regime, because that is Fettes, and the Fettes school that Tony Blair and the Prime Minister went to, yeah, with Bill Gamel, who is Gamaliel in the Old Testament in the Bible, and helps launch Christianity into the Mediterranean. Yeah, that's Rabbi Gamaliel, the rabbit joke. Right then, and this is the tiffs about the Inneses and the Lord's Lion, okay, and the lion trysting tree. Okay, the Duke of Roxburgh had a trysting tree that was hit by lightning and has now been flattened. So they had to plant a little one now, and they then make a little role play as the Kersdalers, and they dig their initials out of the soil, and it looks really romantic if you're a stupid person that supports all of the pageantry, which is just a joke about the killing of your ancestors forever. Okay, So that's the guy Innes Kerrs, and the fact that the Inneses cannot have title now because the Innes Kerrs are much more powerful. Yeah, and I visited the museum again yesterday, and it's lovely. And Margaret, who comes into the story further down, is actually a historian, and she attends the Church of Scotland. And if you call her Maggie, you'd better keep your head down, because she does not like that. And Margaret is linked to Margaret of Norway, that is in the fudges introduced into Scottish history by fucking Longshanks in the Treaty of Birgham. And I'll tell you that story when we get down to it. I only learned it yesterday. It's really, really sick. Birgham is less than 18 miles from here, and I nearly died there in a car crash. I now understand everything that I've been exposed to in my lifetime helps me along the way to taking the world back to freedom. Right then. So, chiefs and outcasts, is that? Standing councils. Oh yeah, this is the people that have opted out of being on the Council of Elites in Scotland. Yeah, that's all of the Murdochs. That's all. There's hundreds of names. And I met the Bergens yesterday, and all of my friends on the Balfours farm many of them are listed. The Weemses, ever such nice people. Yeah, ever such nice people. I had no idea when I was a youngster, yeah, playing in my little red revolutionary pedal car, that the people around me are actually the Balfours that partitioned Israel. And the Hayes that are the conveners of the councils of local chiefs in Scotland. Okay, so St Andreas. How did I skip below all of that? This one's unimportant because it's the stuff about the Holy Grail. Yeah, we can move on from that. You've now been explained the Holy Grail is the goblin on the church roof, and all of that is there to divert the lightning strikes onto the verge of the church roof, and the church roof is concrete, so it is not conducting. That is how they live long and prosperously, by stealing from their parishioners and all of the global empire that they now have. St Andreas. The myth about St Andrew is the patron saint of 19 countries. He never lived. Okay, and he was originally, in 1147, Andreas of Caithness. Caithness is right up on the north of Scotland, where the maid, the Queen Mum, has a massive castle. I forget what it was called. It's a black and sinister place. My wife loved it. Yeah, she's a patriot to the false monarchy. Okay, there is Skeen's map, and Jimmy Skeen was a pupil at Kelso High School, and in the dockets of information and the Bertillon textbooks that I have in my attic, I still have on my jotter Jimmy Skeen's signature. He's the religious historian, and he maps out the bishoprics in Scotland. Okay, the Bishop of Caithness was the ecclesiastical head of the Diocese of Caithness. That's that bit, and it comes down by the time that Madonna gets spliced in it to there where the RAF base is. Yeah, and thank you for that, if that is the Norwegian influence and pressuring the sad bastards into defending themselves, because everything is a vicious crime against the people. There's the Hallkirk Declaration again, and Gilbert, Bishop Gilbert of Moravian, yeah, Moravia is in Czechoslovakia, and that is the great schism joke, and that is the joke about the Czechoslovakian people and the papacy there being immune from the plague, and it becomes the Queen song about the Rhapsody. Yeah, the Rhapsody in Czechoslovakia. You remember it? The longest standing hit in the hit parade when we were children. It's about the schism and the Pope in Czechoslovakia. Bohemian Rhapsody. Okay, and that's Dornoch, where Madonna was spliced, and that is now the joke about Christianity being here. Yeah, you might have seen that map before. And you participated in the referendum, and the whole thing is a massive fraud. And they're profiteers against their people, and all you need to do is let them... I approached Alec Nichol this week, and he's a condescending, sad bastard. He's living with the fact that they have to live in the debt pool. I thought he was more spirited than that. But the old Nick label clearly applies. And Tam Weatherston went the same route earlier in the week. So back to Dornoch. So St Andreas was the original bishop, and can you see the links to the 19 countries now? And St Andrew is also alleged to have slayed the dragon in Lydia, which is right next door to fucking Tel Aviv. Right then, so this is the bit about Madonna being married by the vicar and the Dickensian donkeys, and the Kelso links to Otterburn and also to the Murray golf course and all of the elites. Yeah, the Balfours are on the burial celebrations. They're in the massive plaques that surround the Episcopalian Church, and there are 7 bishops. One of them's at St Andrews, and all of it is really sinister, because that is the Church of England in Scotland, and my neighbours are in it, and they pretend to be civilised people, and all of them are quite ruthless. I have not made my mind up about Mr. Dick yet. Yeah, that's the Mr. Dick in David Copperfield with the donkeys neighing on the cliff top joke. Same joke as David Murray and the Scottish Borders Council release. And the elite authors do not stop. All of it. Yet the people that we talked about further down, I forget which one is involved in that, but in the law sector bit we get to people that are actually propagandists, and they are in the Shakespearean acting and writing sector. Right then. So there's the Adam and Melrose bit. So they shift the people around. So Robert the Bruce's heart was brought back to Abbotsford, the Freemasonic hub for David Murray and Lord Sanderson of Bowden and Alistair Brooks, who gave me the sack from their syndicate on the river for not killing salmon in the embargo on killing salmon. And Lord Sanderson of Bowden was head of the negotiators of the EU fish quotas for Mrs. Thatcher's regime and for 30 years beyond it. Yeah, he's the one who sacked me. He's the one who puts the Scottish textiles jerseys in the bags. They're made in China. We put the price tag on them in the Scottish Borders, and that man is a sad, sad profiteering thief. And every time they send our armies to their deaths, I don't know how they live with themselves. They're ever so proud of it. And I refused to kill his fish, and I gave him the rabbit sign. Yeah. And I've not had a job since. Yeah. They are now quaking in their boots. I saw him in Kelso Square. He will not look you in the eye. Fat little bastard. There he is. Lord Sanderson of Bowden. That's Longshanks. That's Douglas Home. The man who brutalised sub-Saharan Africa and carpet-bombed the Garden of Eden. His name is actually pronounced Hume, like the pacifists that wrote about all of the Hume issues, and they have a massive mansion and the public have to pay to get in. There's Bruce, whose heart is in Lord Sanderson's of Bowden's Abbotsford Cathedral. Yeah, and the whole thing is a stitch-up. That's David Murray, I think. Yeah, that's Alec Nichol, and that is sad, sad bastard Hutton. Yeah, the one who was leading the pipers up and down in front of Floor's castle yesterday. Floors means Peel. And the Duke of Roxburgh is harbouring all of those jokes. He may be so innocent and simple that he does not understand them, but I very much doubt it. Floors means Piso. That's the Pied Piper joke, and leading the troops, and leading the rats to their deaths. They are arrogant bastards, and all of them, including the Marquis of Lothian, that's Michael Ancram, called Kerr, who leads the troops into Aldershot for their training before they go to their deaths. And all of them, including Guy Ineas Jesus Kerr, are interlocked as relatives of Longshanks with Pippa Middleton. And there's the Clydesdale Bank and all of the banks that the sad bastards like him, Lord Sanderson of Bowden, crash through their career paths. I had better hopes for Alec Nichol, but yesterday he just put my conversation into the ditch. Right then, and there's another policeman in front of the constitutional monarchy icon that is the fraudulent and illegitimate monarchy for 163 years. That's the Adam of Melrose tab. Okay, that's the Freemasons of the borders, entirely sell their country at every opportunity for the fast buck, like Robert the Bruce. And they are now registered all over the London area, and that is the Grosvenor registration, the Episcopal Church in Scotland, with the KP Calpurnius Piso icon on the cedar wood, is registered in Grosvenor Square in fucking Edinburgh. And that is the Duke of Westminster, Britain's richest man, and the Duchess of Roxburgh used to be his sister. Still is his sister, in fact, but is no longer the Duchess of Roxburgh and is not allowed to visit that treasonous place. Which means Piso, Floors Castle. Right then. So this is Gilbert de Murray. I'm going to tell you this story in full because this brings us into the fucking Murdochs. Right then. And today, because this is really, really serious, I'm drinking only tonic water. This exemplifies how really fucking serious it is. Okay, so this is Gilbert de Moravia, the Moravian lineage from the lowlands and the north of France near Dunkirk. Good morrow to you. This tab explains the Moravian links to Bohemia and Czechoslovakia, to the Rothschilds and the Levesons, the first Dukes of Sutherland. Okay? So Gilbert, we've talked about the Rothschilds, and the Gilbert Foundation is a massive fraud involving people called Bruno, and it used to be like an old-fashioned furniture vent and store. It becomes the Gilbert Trust, and it becomes a host for enormous art treasures right through world history. Okay, so it also unites the Bruno, World Bank, Gilbert Trust, Rothschild Holdings and Friends of Israel like Jim Murphy, and the earlier Labour Quislings, including Baron Tam Dalyell. Friends of Israel all. He's a Jew, he's the world's leading media propagandist, but still they persecute Eric Joyce, who was a tank commander in Iraq, just because his name is Joyce, and just because the earlier Joyce was the propagandist who worked for Lord Haw-Haw, he was Lord Haw-Haw. He worked for the family that run Burke's Peerage even to this very day. That is Oswald Mosley's family, and the previous editor of Burke's Peerage died in 2014. He's the nephew of Oswald Mosley. Yeah, not many people know that unless you're really clever and you're really intent on exposing everything that these sad bastards have done to global freedom. There's the Leveson inquiry with the actor from the Notting Hill film, which is the Scots of Notting Hill joke. That's Miss Scott of Notting Hill was the American, but the Scots are all over the boards, and the Bucclews and all of them, yeah, are profiteers par excellence, and they just let down their people relentlessly, and their readers. But the readers are so simple, they're quite happy to look at the tits on page 3. There's Tony Blair, worked for JP Morgan, 2 million retainer, and he proclaimed that it was overestimated at the Leveson inquiry. And there is Leveson, is further down the page. This is the body doubles that were unable to attend the Jehovah's yesterday. One of them is a dead ringer for the young Murdoch there, that's depicted there. And his girlfriend is from Belgium. They were too preoccupied with the selling of their chattels in the massive Roxburgh Castle or Flores Castle yesterday that they could not attend their religious commitments. It's actually the Czech Republic joke and the Bohemian Rhapsody joke run by the brothers globally, because when you look up the Moravia on Google Maps, it takes you to a place called Bros. B-R-O-S. There it is, right in the middle of the Czech Republic. Bros. That's the global Freemasons movement, and it becomes the Bruno joke, yeah, which is all of the jokes about Frank Bruno, and Bruno who was the head of the World Bank. Yeah, all of it, and all of the financial institutions that run the world and own people like Tam Dalyell entirely and Jim Murphy entirely. Yeah, all of them are capable of making speeches like you heard defending the sad, sad, murderous and stealing work of Stephen House in asset stripping everything that was innocently Scotland's when I was just a boy in 1963. Okay, so there's the Moravia linkage. I could show you, if I click on that, it will take us right into the Bros place. Yeah, really, really funny for them. And that was immune. And what you've got across here is places like legendary places for death camps in wartime. Yeah, there's Austria here, and this is where Hitler came, yeah, when the war was sparked. Yeah, that's the Anschluss into this region. Yeah, right then. But it gets sicker. Let me explain the Murdochs and how they come into the team and what their alias is. So there's Moravia again, a region of the Czech Republic located between Bohemia on the west and Carpathians on the east. Chief town Brno, a province of Bohemia from the 11th century. It was made an Austrian province in 1848 and is that 1948, and became a part of Czechoslovakia in 1918. Yeah, 1914 to 18, and that's the carve up of the Prussian and German empires. Okay, and that is the Moravian link of Christianity to Scotland. Yeah, and the Moravians are the Leveson Gowers, the Sutherlands, and all of the families that I've told you about. And the Bertillons. Yeah, and all of the Bertie jokes. Let's take a little closer look. St Gilbert of Dornoch, yellow with black stripes. That's the Melrose colours. That's St Giles and the Bertie jokes, all wrapped in to the same name. Okay, and the Moravingians, which is the Moravian joke that we've just shared, all rolled up and wrought on stones. You've got round the window ledge there, wrought on stones. Yeah, and there are the icons that we've explained for the Murrays with the 3 stars. There's the joke about the Arthurian legends written by the popes in Rome and imposed all across the Christian world as a joke. Yeah, that is the Marcus Aurelius, the man who played Marcus Aurelius, playing King Arthur in the Camelot movie, and the whole thing is written by the popes. Yeah, and there's the Scottish lion on the door knocker. And that becomes the lion lying down, which is the Egyptian myth, which is the Sphinx. Right, and what you've got further down is the links to the Morais and the goldfish and the Yom Kippur. Okay, the goldfish are in the middle. There's the salmon jokes and the salmon, and there are the herrings, which is the Yom Kippur Jerusalem jokes. And the Yom Kippur is the Festival of Lights, and all of the North Sea oil wealth, all of it is renewable, and all of it we get charged massive prices at the forecourt, and we're told that that is the remnants of the dinosaurs, and all of that is likely to be false news. And there is the Bert word, yeah, on the icons. Gilbert and the Bert word all rolled up into one, and that's the Windsor Bertie joke, just to let them know it's me. And their festival day is the 1st of April, the Poisson d'Avril, the 1st of April, and that's why they've got the fish there, and the fish is the penis, and it's sex with your wife on a Friday. And Freya, the Friday joke, is about the Norse goddesses of beauty and love. And all of the Christian names for every day in our week are actually pagan names. But they don't give a fuck as long as the money stream keeps coming into their coffers. The sun's come out. I don't know what I said there, but yeah, it's the taking the piss on the 1st of April. Yeah, the piss is the poisson, and that is the fish of April. Okay, so let's keep going down until we show you why the Murdochs come into this section. Okay, Gilbert de Moravia died 1245, later known as Saint Gilbert of Dornoch, or Gilbert of Caithness. Now Caithness is on the north coast, but when we get to the time that Madonna gets married in the Dornoch Cathedral, it's actually in the Firth of Moray, the Moray Firth. Yeah, do you get it? The Moray Firth, with the massive air bases that NATO use to suppress the free world. Gaelicised family of Flemish origin who were the lords of the Duffs. Yeah, and the people that live in my town that were married into the Duffs, and the children died really young, they know that this news is coming out, and I see them in the town square. And they are people who are really respected as rugby players, and they have travelled the world. I'd love for you, Jimmy, to get on my side, because you used to have the courage to be one of the most inspiring rugby players that I ever played with. And the man who was in the fat issues in the front row in the church at St Andrew yesterday is beginning to look a bit like my mate Jimmy. But I hope that Jimmy, that I respected so much, would be able to rise up and get all of the news out about all of the people that get treated badly in Britain's armies, generation after generation, and who during Gilbert's episcopate would create the earldom of Sutherland under Gilbert's possible cousin William de Moravia, Czechoslovakia, first ever Earl of Sutherland. Okay, it is known, now wait for it, yeah, this is the pause for effect, it is known that Gilbert was the son of one Murdoch, yeah, Murdoch, yeah. So we've got the Kerrs, we've got the Gilbert Foundation, the links to the Rothschilds, and all of the cash flows and the art treasures, and we've got the Murdochs into the Christian community. And their lookalikes were too busy selling the little foodstuff chattels at the
Floors Castle, which means Piso, yesterday, that they could not attend Jehovah's place of worship. And the Jah name comes into all of the Borders history because it's the Yarrow River, and it's all through the transcript. That's the Yarrow River that runs through the legless Duke of Buccleuch's territory. And the guys who were historians at the castle yesterday and had muskets with them and swords, they told me that the Duke of Buccleuch, who lost both his legs in an act of God, that he was one of the most decent members of their family ever. And I am really God-fearing now. There is Murdoch, he's not at all God-fearing. There is the actor that plays the heroic roles in all those films that take the piss about Nottingham, Notting Hill, and the know-nothings that work from there. Yeah? And that is the thing that lost me John Patterson's friendship, because you must have noticed that John Patterson rants on about attending congresses in places like Nottingham as soon as I reveal that it is a Freemasonic joke about people, yeah, the man at the Jehovah's who's called Hawkins has stepped down from being the chair of the meetings now, yeah, since I revealed their treasonous role. And I have a lot of time for the princesses with the dark hair, who are the Black Douglases. But I was not allowed to sit anywhere near anybody of my choice yesterday. I was put in the commentary box at the back. And it's really boring. Right then, here's Leveson himself. This is the chair of the Leveson inquiry. They are the Levites in the Old Testament, the administrators for the Barent Cohens, and the Cohens who are the high priests of Israel and are married into Aaron and his sister for purity reasons in their bloodline. Do you get it now? He's the one who looks at the claims of all of those people in that frame above, who are the world's owners and the world's releasers of all of its false news, and they give them money because of what was written in the papers or the news that Lord Stevenson, when he was head of the Metropolitan Police, like Stephen House, released about their mates and their treasonous behaviours. And somebody with their tits out, yeah, is an even bigger issue than that, yeah. And all of them, including Tony Blair's deputy, who was a man called John Prescott, and he's another one of those fat bastards that would not make it beyond the pulpit if he had to go to confession and actually confess what he did as a socialist in Blair's murderous regime. Yeah, but he ran for a while as a police commissioner like McCaskill. Yeah, all of them are prepared to steal and kill and be at the head of government. They will not be accountable for themselves in the course of time, and God will catch up with them all. Or gods, I am too simple to know how many there are, but I highly respect them. Yeah, and I fear them like shit. Because I know what they are capable of. And luckily we have no volcanoes anywhere near here, although the Eildons that overlook Melrose look as if they may have been at one time volcanic. And when you look at the rim of the whole of the Borders region from the top of the mountains near Hawick, where blind Prince George of Cumbria and Teviotdale sired Queen Victoria's first child, you can see that we live in a volcanic crater, which is actually a caldera. And I met Finlay Calder last week, one of the elite families from Scotland. Okay, everybody's on my case. Yeah, I'm quite stunned that I have no attempts to intervene and interrupt the production of this video. Okay, Gilbert allegedly had a younger brother, Richard de Moravia. That's Dick. I will not show you the business card for Mr. Dick. And the joke about the donkeys on the cliff tops in the Dickensian output. Yeah? But Dick de Moravia was killed fighting against the Scandinavians, and whose effigy sarcophagus currently resides in the cathedral. Okay? and the Duffusses and the Straboks, that's the Box, and the links to the Duplessis. Okay, Adam of Melrose, the bishopric seat, should be moved closer to royal protection. So it was that Gilbert's episcopate saw the moves of the bishopric from Falkirk in the far north. Yeah, that's the Falkirk joke and all of the historical covers, to Dornoch in the far south, where Madonna was married, right next door to the airbase. And the pressmen were persecuted for taking pictures of Madonna with all of her children born way beyond virginity in her white virgin wedding dress, yeah, so that they could create an aura that something was going on which is really exciting in world history. And all of the things that they've already stolen were stolen from exactly the same places, which is why it is the Carnegie Foundation's place of worship. Okay, so you've got the Scottish and the Rab jokes tied into it, the timing of all of the calendar of the saints. He's the last Scottish saint to appear in the calendar of saints. Yeah, and although it is not known if he was ever formally canonised. So that brings in together all of the Abbotsford, Murray Golf Course, David Murray of Rangers, Scottish Masons that killed their own kids, Sanderson of Bowden, Hutton in the asset stripping of Scottish councils, the Las Vegas military tattoo, and the Pi Pi pipe band, Floor's Castle, Pizzo jokes, all of them that sad bastard Hutton is in charge of. And his accent is peerless, BBC. Yeah, and he's the director at the British Legion, and he's a profiteer on everything that he looks at, and all of his director numbers I've got. The SRU company has 80 million at the bank, and the toxic debt pool for the Borders Council is way over 300 million and rising year on year. He's bailed out of that now into the more profitable, yeah, and cynical roles with the medals on his chest and in the pulpit at the Church of Scotland. Right then, so let's tell you about Birgham before I run out of time. Okay, so I nearly died at Birgham in a car crash, and I nearly died at Birgham in the arms of an American maiden. Yeah, because I was kind of touching her on the thigh, and I did not notice that there was a bus coming in the other direction. And what you've got at that place where I nearly, if I'd been a foot and a half further to the right and further across the white line, I would no longer be capable of making videos. And I still got the glass bits in my cheeks, yeah, that were there. And I went to the hospital, the local hospital in Coldstream, that then was still open, and they were able to save me. Yeah, and I've now taken on the job that I've been given, and that is very near a place called Ord, which is gold, and German, and it's right next door to the Hersal, which was owned by Sir Alec Douglas Home, who I've now learned is called Hume, like Jim Hume with the horses, yeah, the Lib Dem, yeah, and that's Sir Alec who carpet bombed the Garden of Aden 1961 to 63, and he pretends that he's protecting sub-Saharan Africa. It's pronounced Hume, like the bridge in Sarajevo, where World War II was sparked by the killing of the Archduke on the Hume Bridge. That is the pacifist philosophers of the borders, and the Hume Castle is a fake too. It's an artefact on top of a hill, and it is just a folly. So, the Treaty of Birgham was guaranteed by England's King Edward I, Longshanks. The purpose of the treaty was to put to rest the competing claims of the House of Balliol and the House of Bruce. You've heard of them. That's the man behind the helmet, the traitor, and his dad with all of the issues of leprosy, yeah, in Scotland in all of those years ago. The treaties were drawn up in Salisbury in 1289 and Birgham, Berwickshire, in 1290. Our historians have missed that out of our history lessons, and the reasons for that will be obvious. They were negotiated and signed by the guardians of Scotland. That's the people I've told you about again and again, and appear in the Braveheart movie, who were ruling in the Maid of Norway's absence due to her age, under the condition that the heiress of Scotland, Margaret, the Maid of Norway, who's just the wee girlie of Norway, yeah, would marry Edward's son. Yeah, that's the poof. And his boyfriend was chucked by Edward out the window. Yeah, so Scotland was to remain separate and divided from England according to its rightful boundaries, which are right next door to Ord, which means gold, right next door to Coldstream, where the dead man's boots are still sold in the shop in the High Street, and that's John Lamont's constituency. The treaty specified that even though a wife's possessions should become the husband's upon marriage, in this case it would not. It stated upon Margaret the Maid of Norway and Edward's marriage that the churches of Scotland and England were to be made separate for sectarian reasons, that the owner of lands in Scotland shall not have them disinherited. It made sure that both the parliaments of England and Scotland were to remain separate and not to be held outside of their respective country. So now we've got the situation where we send representatives to Westminster, we send them to the Borders Council, we send them to Holyrood, yeah, and the whole of it is a total overlapping treasonous project. All of them massive people get massive salaries, massive holidays. Callum Kerr is unavailable for meetings. He's had 2 weeks holidays in his first 2 months in office. Right then, so you now know that there was a treaty at Bergen, and these are the people that take the piss out of British history all the time. That is Mornay in the Braveheart movie. Do you recognise him? He's from County fucking Durham with a Geordie accent. Yeah, and he is in the armies at the Battle of Stirling and the Battle of Falkirk, which is a cover for the religious frauds in Falkirk, and which is why they had to move Caithness down by a couple of 100 miles till it was in a more defensible region, and they've got the air base for NATO right next door instead of Quislings from just south of the border in County Durham. His name is Armstrong. Let's keep going. Yeah, because I want the whole truth out about their jokes and their treason. And the Armstrongs take us to new territory in the Borders Wars, because that is the man that gets us to the moon. And Nixon is a hero. Yeah, so this is the Moon and Back project, and I think it was 1968 when we were alleged to have visited the moon. Apollo 11, Armstrong, Collins and Aldrin. Okay, Aldrich is one of the Göttingen 7. Yeah, and all of these people, Armstrong is a revolutionary from the Langham area where Rabsy Nisbet comes from. Okay, and Nisbet is a Scottish elite, and not many people know that until earlier in the week, and I read you the Scottish clan listings. Okay, so there's Apollo 11. Let's just hear what happened when they got to the moon. Yeah, and we've got tranche after, and that happened when the computers were so big that they filled the whole of my laboratory. Yeah, you needed an extra extension to your laboratory if you had a computer in those days. Now they fit inside everybody's phone, and that is the iPod joke, which is a joke about religion, and the ephod, which is carried by the Levites on behalf of the one true God, and tucking away the proceeds of the war if you win the war. The name Hamilton is mentioned Yeah, that's the Hamiltons that are linked to the Hesses and are linked to the bus empire that is the Park Empire, which is linked to the brutalisation of the whole of Africa by Mungo Park from Selkirk, where the BBC studios are, run by Alistair Moffat, who's the rector at St Andrews University, that comes in